Okay, welcome back to the Mental Toughness Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Siebold, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast on our website at mentaltoughnnesspodcast.org. mentaltoughnnesspodcast.org. Subscribe and you'll be notified every week of the podcast. We do this once a week, so you'll be notified and you can get on our regular list. Okay, today I want to talk about really a question I have for you. And this is a really serious question, and it's when I've said this in speeches around the world and Q&As, I've never said it on television. I have said it on radio many times, and I get a lot of pushback on this question, but it's a question worth considering and a question worth answering, in my opinion, and here it is. In terms of your life, whose rules are you living by? Whose rules are you living by? What standard are you living by? What code of conduct are you living by? How are you living your life, and where are you getting those set of rules? You know, they talk about different things like the golden rule, which is, I think, is my favorite thing. You know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think that's probably the most common sense rule I've ever heard in my life. But different people live by different rules. Now, why do people get offended? Well, this is where a lot of times religion comes in, and people say, well, you know, I'm a Christian, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Hindu, or I'm a Buddhist, or, you know, there's 4,500 gods, major religions in this country, or not this country, in the world. 4,500. That's a lot of gods and a lot of religions. And so around the world, and of course in the U.S., of course, we're mostly Christianity based, but there are so many. That's changing, of course, over time. The biggest group now in America, the fastest growing group, are the nuns. The non-affiliated people that say they're not affiliated with any religion. That's the fastest growing group by far. And so that's another thing. But the question is, whose rules are you living by? Now, if it's a religious set of rules and you believe in that and that's how you base your life, well, then the question is by that religious set of rules. Or maybe it's a different code. Okay, maybe it's a different way of living. Maybe it's some kind of philosophy that you live your life guided by. Now, why would I bring this up in a mental toughness podcast? Because this really is mental toughness and critical thinking in terms of living your life. What rules do you go by? How do you judge right from wrong? You know, a lot of times people will say, well, you know, you have to have religion, or you have to have some kind of philosophy or some kind of doctrine in your life to decide what's right and wrong. Because where's the line? You know, I mean, is right and wrong objective? You know, like it's in stone, or is it subjective? Is it based on your philosophy? Right? I mean, most people would say, well, it's wrong to kill someone, but then people say, well, in what context? Well, how about killing someone if you're in a war against them and they're trying like they are in Ukraine and they're trying to steal their country, the Russians. So now is it wrong to kill the Russians trying to steal their country? Most people would probably say no. Well, is it wrong to kill someone or not? Well, it depends on the context. It also depends on your belief system is. So it's worth exploring in mental toughness, because the more clear you are about your philosophy or your religion or your belief system, whatever that may be, the better performer you're going to be in your life, because you're going to know where to draw the line in the sand for you. You're going to know how far is too far. And again, a lot of times people will say, and I've debated people on radio, not so much television. It's a little tough for television, a little too much for television. But I debated people on radio all over the world, mostly in the United States and Canada, where they'll say, well, you know, right and wrong is objective. These are objective things. And of course, what they're relying on is religion. They're saying, well, this is the way it is, and that's it. Well, there are 4,500 religions. Which one do you believe in? Because in terms of, you know, if you believe in Christianity, for example, or you believe you're a Buddhist, or you're a Muslim, or you're a Hindu. Okay, well then you're an atheist. You're at least agnostic to all the other religions, which is 4,500 religions. So you're an atheist or agnostic to almost every single religion if you're religious. So all the religions say that. They all say they're the one. Well, there's thousands of them. Okay, so this is not a cut and dry thing. Now, if you live in America, a very religious country, Christianity-based for the most part, right? We've been indoctrinated for years. I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm saying this is what it is. I mean, this is not an opinion. This is the fact. You know, we get indoctrinated from the time we're children. We don't even have a chance to think for ourselves. We're little babies, and they take us to church. And I was one of those people. And so maybe that works for some people. I have lots of friends who are very religious. It works really well. They guide their life by it and works real well for them. So if it's working for you, then no problem. Then you already have this answer. Then you say, well, I live according to this set of religious rules or these philosophies. And if it's working for you and you're good with it, that's good. Just know what it is. Well, there are a lot of people, especially now, especially the younger generations coming up, the people are in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s. They're questioning everything. Why? Well, I don't know for sure, but my guess is because they have access to information we never had. I mean, we were told if you're say 45 and up, you were told what to do, and people said this is right and this is wrong and this is the way this is and this happened this way and that happened that way, that type of thing, and we said okay. Why? Because we didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have a mobile device to go, wait a second, let me check on that. Well, today, the young people, young adults today have grown up with that. They have access to information we never had. We just had to take it at face value. I was on a Zoom call with a good friend and business partner, client of mine named Chris Igwe from Paris. And Chris and I talked often. We're working on a project together. And we were talking about this, and I told Chris, I said, we were talking about the difference between France and the United States. And I said, Chris, when we grew up in the school system, we were indoctrinated into this philosophy that America is the greatest country in the world. Of course, we repeat that all the time. The Americans love to repeat that. And we're the greatest country in the world. And basically, in a nutshell, like there are other countries, but they're not really as important as us. And we always do the right thing and so on and so forth. We are indoctrinated with this. I mean, maybe the school system has changed. I don't think so, according to the people I know that have kids that are in school. It hasn't changed that much. That's kind of how we're taught, that America is the shining, city on the hill. And, America is a great country in a lot of ways. But when you say you're the greatest country in the world, well, then you better back it up with stats. Well, we don't have the stats. We have some stats as in America. We are a great country. There's no question. And we're also way behind in many, many things. And one of them is critical thinking. Now, this is more of an opinion. This is more my opinion than it would be an objective fact. But I want you to just consider it, because I think the idea is that, we've gotten away in America with being able to say how great we are and all these things because we're such a rich country. We're the richest country in the history of the world. And when you're rich, just like a rich kid, like a rich teenager, or someone that inherits, millions of dollars or billions of dollars even, you can get away with anything. Because you have so much money, you can cover up all the things you say and all that type of thing. There's people, enablers around you and yes men around you and that type of thing. And you can get away with anything. And I think to in a large sense that, we have done that in America. Again, we are great in some things, but other things we're not. We're indoctrinated to believe it is the point. We're indoctrinated. And then you start looking at stats. How are we on education? Well, we're not very, we don't do real well. How are we on the climate? Well, we don't fare very well there. How are we on all these different things? And we don't fare well in a lot of areas. Now, we are great in some areas, but in a lot of areas we're suffering. And a lot of areas we've gone down. But we're indoctrinated to believe that we really are great in everything. We are just the greatest thing in the history of the world. And we've never done anything wrong. Right, even though we came into the country and killed all the indigenous people, but we don't really like to talk about that. Our civil rights history is horrible. Right, the slavery situation horrible. I mean, there's all kinds of these things. I know, now you might be getting upset about this if you're listening to this. You might say, oh well, you're going to get into all these things about making us feel guilty, and this is being taught, and this is what's so controversial right now. One of the things in the school system: don't teach kids to feel guilty because of what we did to the with slavery and the blacks and civil rights and all that kind of thing. It's not about making people feel guilty. It's about educating people on reality. These things happened. It's not about feeling guilty. I didn't do any of those things. I've never had slaves. I've never abused a person of another color or race or sexual orientation or anything like that. I mean, look at what we've done to people that are in the LGBTQ community. My God, these people are committing suicide all the time because we've made them feel. I'm not saying individually, but as a society, we've made them feel that they're less than because they want to sleep with someone different than the majority of people. What does it matter who someone? Let them be happy. Life is tough enough, but we want to make them feel like they're less than because they're not in the majority. It's sickening, is what it is, and we continue to do it. Why? Indoctrination. And that's where I'm circling back to this. We've been indoctrinated to live by a certain set of rules. Cults do this as well. Religions do it, cults do it, philosophies do it. Groups of people, well, I guess you could call groups of people cults in that case. But there's all kinds of ways you can become indoctrinated. Here's what I would recommend is in the context of mental toughness and critical thinking. Make a conscious decision as an educated adult to live by the rules that you want to live by. And I would ask you to consider living by your own. Oh, I know that gets people going, man. I used to get callers coming in threatening me on the radio all the time. Live by your own rules. I think that as an adult, with all the different things you realize as you get out of school, high school, college, and that type of thing, you get out in the world, you start to realize that everybody's got an angle. I'm not saying the whole world's corrupt, but a lot of the world's corrupt. Let's be honest. I mean, it's not all sunshine and roses out there. It's a tough place. It's a great place and a horrible place all at the same time. Like we can put a man on the moon. Elon Musk can put a rocket up. Jeff Bezos can have his own rocket, but we can't stop killing each other at war. I mean, we're great and we're horrible at the same time. And so it's this dichotomy of life and living and the way things are. And so I would ask you to seriously consider, as a mentally tough adult, looking at all the pitches you've gotten, whether it's religion, philosophy, any kind of dogma, anyone or organization or entity that says you should think this is right, this is wrong. Well, who are they to tell you anything? They're just an adult just like you. They're no smarter than you. They're no smarter than me. They're pitching something. There's an angle somewhere, and there usually is. That's the reality. I'm not trying to be negative. That's just the reality. I mean, if you're out there thinking, the world's all positive, you're going to get kicked around your whole life. So to kind of wrap this into a bow, what I'm suggesting is you live by your own rules. Now, if you decide, hey, it's Christianity or it's Hinduism or then that's fine. You've decided. You've made a conscious choice to live by those rules, and then fine. Then you've made a conscious choice. Don't let them indoctrinate you, though, and brainwash you into living by it because they say it's right. Who is they? Who are they? These people are no smarter than us. They have an angle. They're trying to pitch it for a reason. It's either about money or it's about power, or typically it's about both. Just like the government, right? The government wants to tell you how to live. Why? It's about power. Typically, people don't go into politics. I've worked with a lot of politicians over the years, and I know a fair amount of politicians in Washington. And I will tell you, at least in my experience, I don't have the data to back this up, but in my experience, they don't do it for the money. They do it for the power. They love power. I've never been a power person. I don't really get it, but okay, it's one of those things that some people love. They love the power. They love control, and they try to tell us what to do and how to live and all those things. But they're no smarter than you, and they're no smarter than me. So why not live by your own rules? Why not take everything into consideration that we've all learned our whole lives? I'm saying if you're in high school, you're at the end of high school, you're at the end of college, and you're moving into the adult world. Now they call it adulting, right? Whatever that means, kind of becoming an adult and that type of thing. You know a whole bunch, and if you're a young person right now, you know way more than we did, 30 years ago. Believe me, because we didn't have access to information like you guys do. We just did what we were told because we couldn't prove they were wrong. And let me tell you something. The stuff we learned, a lot of it, they were wrong. Some of the stuff that we were indoctrinated with, I won't even get into that because it's off topic, really. But they were wrong. They were lying to us, and it was a power grab, and it was a money grab, and those kinds of things. They want to control people. The world has a history of trying to control the population, the masses. The governments do it, of course. That's why people like Putin, these are autocrats. These people just want to just tell us what to do, and they do, and they run countries like that. There are people that want to run the world like that. There are people in our country right now that don't want democracy, right? We don't get into that. It's all politics, but it's the same thing. They're trying to tell you this is the way to live. Who the hell are they to tell you how to live? Or tell me how to live. They don't know any more than we do. They're trying to control us. And that's typically what governments and sometimes religions and philosophies and cults and all that kind of stuff. Schools do it sometimes. Institutions do it. Organizations, companies do it, frankly. Companies are guilty of this. They want to control us. So they make a set of rules and they say, these are the right rules. Live by our rules, my rules, their rules, etc. And so they use those things to control society. And you know what? It works. Because most people just fall over and say, okay, I guess you're right and I'm wrong because you're smarter than I am. They're not smarter than you. How about making up your own rules? I'll tell you my rules. My rules are the golden rule. That's the goal. That's the number one rule, I think, a common sense rule. I'm not telling you to subscribe to this because who am I to tell you? No more than anyone else should be telling you. You should make up your own mind. And that's part of being mentally tough. I like the golden rule because I treat people the way I'd like to be treated most of the time. But do I make mistakes? Of course, like everyone else. But that's what I go for. That's my main philosophy. And I don't know. And again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just what I've decided. But I made a conscious choice to do that. And that's part of being mentally tough is taking control of your own mind. So other people aren't telling you how you should live and how you should think. You know, if you're heterosexual, great. If you're homosexual, great. If you're into religion, a religious person, great. If you're an atheist, great. Whatever it is you decide, then you've made a conscious choice to live that way. And that's a much better life than living under someone else's thumb. And just because they tell you they know more than you, they don't. They're full of it. I've been around for a long time, and I've traveled around the world many times, and I'm no smarter than anybody else. But I've got some years under me and some experience, and I'm telling you, they're full of it. They're full of it. They don't know any more than you, and they don't know any more than me. So don't let them brainwash you into living a life that you don't want to live. They're just trying to control you. And so, anyway, something to think about as you go forward. It's part of mental toughness. It's part of critical thinking. And it's a very serious subject, obviously. So if I offended you, that wasn't my intention. But my intention is just to get you to think about it because it can make a huge difference in your life. Once I started thinking for myself and living life on my terms instead of someone else's or some institution or some whatever, I got a lot happier. And now it's a lot better life, a lot higher quality, in my opinion, life. So heavy topic, something to think about. Okay, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Our next episode, we're going to talk about forgiving yourself, how to be your own best friend, and the psychology of forgiveness, because it's just such a big topic. So that's going to be our next episode. So tune in. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you'll be notified through email at mentaltoughnnesspodcast.org. mentaltoughnnesspodcast.org, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks for listening.